Good morning, Booktube, YouTube. This is Johnny. Time to make a video. It is 9:52 in the morning here in Southwest Michigan. It is February the 2nd, 2025. And outside we had snow during the night. So it's about 28 degrees and it's cold and snowy. And it is a Sunday, beginning of another week in my life. And so yeah, I said in one of my recent videos that I was going to go to Bluestocking's Bookshop, which sells used books, and I had in-store credit. I have dehauled books over the last couple of years and got in-store credit, so I bought all these. Well, I didn't know when I went around the store and looked at their used books and grabbed a bunch of things that looked interesting, and when I came to pay for them, the woman said, her name is Amy, said, hey, they're all in-store credit, so I didn't have to pay any money for them. So that was nice. She said I still had $100 with in-store credit. And I told her I was going to come. I need to dehaul some books. But the problem about dehauling books right now is that I've gotten rid of everything that I don't really, would never, I just got rid of a bunch of stuff. Now, what I have is things that I really want or I collected. But then I ask myself, well, I'm going to be 73 years old this year. How many books could, and if I live to be in my 90s, which is another 20 years, and we've lived in this house going on 34 years, and what can I read? Especially, I'm older now, and I'm not like I was when I was young. And so I can always go to the library and check books out, or I can always just read what I have. I have enough, I could get rid of maybe 10,000 books. Well, I have a huge Christian library, which I would never get rid of. And my Christian library, I'd say, is around at least 2,000, at least over 2,000 books. So then I have maybe another maybe 9,000 books. And out of those 9,000 books, I could get rid of maybe 4,000 books. I don't know. So the problem is what to get rid of. And plus I'm always buying books. I'm always going to thrift stores. And I'm always buying books from Amazon. And so I don't know. It's like I told Carol last night, so many things that I do don't have any logical reason to them. There's no sanity. It's just... But to live with that constant tension, that's one thing I want to communicate. To live with the tension, the stress of having all these books. And they're accumulating at a very steady pace. And not only that, but I have my paper diary. This morning I'm on page 108 for the year 2025. So I'm accumulating tons of stuff. And I want to be empty. I want to be free of stuff. I want to be free. I want to be empty. So there's always this tension and stress. So I always, when people comment below my videos and say, I wish I had a library like you or whatever, I tell them, make sure you have bookshelves and realize that there's a lot of stress and tension about books. Because you look at them every day and you think, I got to read them. Or where am I going to put them? Where am I going to store them? It just goes on and on. What am I going to read? And that's the problem, even when I have in the mornings when I get up, like this morning I was writing in my diary and I said, what am I going to read this morning? Because I have so many things to choose from. And I also get to a place where I am stuffed. I can't get anything else into my brain. And I get weary. There's times when you just want to just chill, just sit, or just read the Bible. Now, my wife and I, we are going through the New Testament. We're going through the Gospel of Luke right now. This morning, my wife went to church early. When I got up this morning, she was gone. She had to leave early to set up for church potluck. The first Sunday of every month, her church has a potluck, and she had to help set up, get the tables ready and salt and pepper shakers and make the coffee and things like that. So we didn't read the Bible this morning. Now, I did have a time of prayer this morning because, as I've told you over the years, I can't go through each day without God. I mean, I am so exhausted and so weary and so beaten down that I can't get through a day without God. Especially now, what's going on in America, what's going on in Washington, D.C., it's just absolutely depressing. And very sad and very tragic, because America is just in a total mess. So I did go to Bluestockings, and I did find some used books. I just went around the store and grabbed things that I basically collect. So I thought I'd show you what I got at Bluestockings. That was last week, I think. Last week. It's a new week starts at last week. So here it goes. I'm not going to go much into the books, just show them, give a little reason why I bought them. The first thing here on top of the stack is a biography of Jonathan Edwards, 1703 to 758 by Ola Elizabeth Winslow. I didn't have this biography of Jonathan Edwards. He was a famous early American theologian, pastor, preacher. When you take a class in American literature, when I did in college, we had to read his sermon, Hands of an Angry God, which is not really, you should read all of his sermons. He didn't just deal with that one subject. So I found this, and it was 50 cents. Then I found a novel by Graham Greene. This was also 50 cents. Graham Greene, A Burnt Out Case. This was 50 cents. When I bought it, since I collect Graham Greene, I have a whole shelf. I wasn't sure if I had it in my collection, and I didn't have this one. So I was really pleased with myself. That Graham Greene wrote a lot of books. You can see a list here how many things that he wrote. And he wrote novels, short stories. He wrote plays, travel, essays. He was a prolific writer. But I didn't have this one by Graham Greene, A Burnt Out Case. And then I found this for 50 cents, Waiting for the End, Crisis in American Culture and a Portrait of 20th Century American Literature by Leslie A. Fiedler. Now, he's a very famous American literary critic. I have his, I have a really fat book by him called Death in the American Novel. Love and Death in the American Novel by him. And so when I saw this, I grabbed it because he's a very famous literary, yeah, it says here, what it says in the back here, Leslie A. Fiedler, professor of English at Montana State University, is a noted literary critic and writer of fiction. His books, An End of Innocence, No, in Thunder, Love and Death in the American Novel, and The Second Stone are widely read here and abroad. His new novel, Back to China, will be released soon. I've not read his novels, but this came out in 1964, so I got that. I picked this up because it's a Penguin classic. I have other copies of it, but it was only 50 cents. Samuel Johnson and James Boswell, A Journey to the Western Islands of Scotland and the Journal of a Tour to the Hebrides. It's a very famous travel memoir. One is written by Samuel Johnson and the other one is written by James Boswell. They both went together on this walking journey up to the Western Islands of Scotland. And Samuel Johnson wrote an account and then James Boswell did too. And then I found this book at Bluestockings. I paid $3 for it when it was Graham, The Radical Republican History of the Civil War by LeeAnna Keith. This, it says here, a little summary statement, quote, a history of anti-racist and abolitionist activism in the Civil War era Republican Party. And so I like reading about American politics, the beginning of the Republican Party in American history, and so I grabbed it. Yeah, I read a lot about American history of American politics, and so that's why I bought it for $3. And essays, this was this is $2.40. Essays on the Closing of the American Mind, edited by Robert L. Stone. Now, a number of years ago, there was a very famous book that came out, The Closing of the American Mind by Allen Bloom. Now, I had all of Allen Bloom's books, and I dehauled them. And I had his famous book, The Changing of the American Mind. So what I did last week, I ordered myself another copy of The Closing of the American Mind by Allen Bloom. So when I read these essays in the back by all these different essays, that I'll have the book in front of me, The Closing of the American Mind by Allen Bloom. But the essays all look very interesting, and so it was only $2.40, so I picked it up. This book cost me $6.20, and the reason why I got it is called the Honest Corson, Veronica Franco, Citizen and Writer in the 16th Century Venice by Margaret F. Rosenthal. The reason why it's under gender studies and European history. And the reason why I got it is because I like reading outside my box, and plus I like reading about Venice in the time of the Renaissance. She lived from 1546 to 1591. She was a writer. She was a citizen of Vienna. She published poems, familiar letters. She was a courtesan. She was a prostitute. But in that time period, they had a certain kind of place in society. Anyway, it just looked very interesting. It was something I would not normally read, but I'm interested in those reading things, and this, so I picked it up. This was also 50 cents. This is Jack London, a biography by Richard O'Connor. I collect the writings of Jack London, a very famous American writer. We all grew up with his writings, The Call of the Wild, Sea Wolf, Martin Eden. Martin Eden I read when I did my internship in Texas back in the 80s, Martin Eden, and that's one of the books that if you're thinking about becoming a writer, you should read it, Martin Eden, which is the struggles of a man wanting to be a writer and all the difficulties he had. But this is Jack London, a biography. In his day, Jack London was one of the most loved writers. He was highly published. He was very wealthy. I picked up just recently, hold on, I'll show you something. I recently bought this at Bluestockings a couple of months ago. Jack London, photographer. Jean Campbell, Reisman, Sarah S. Hudson, and Philip Adam. This is Jack London. He was a photographer. He traveled and he took pictures of the San Francisco earthquake back there in the turn of this. So anyway, yeah, I collect books on Jack London and his writings and things like that. So I picked up his biography. I like reading, I've mentioned over the years, I like reading about the history of magazines, history of editors, publishers, reporters. This is Citizen Reporters, S.S. McClure, Etta Tarbell, and the magazine that rewrote America by Stephanie Gordon. Yeah, this is the history of the McClure magazine, which was a very famous American magazine. I don't know when it stopped being published, but this was $2.90, and I like reading about McClure magazine and the S.S. McClure. He started it, and this is one of his reporters, Ida Tarbell. So, the magazine that rewrote America. And then I collect the books of Graham Robb, and I have his biography on Victor Hugo. He wrote a biography on Baudelaire. He wrote some books on Paris. And he wrote this book, Strangers, Homosexual Love of the 19th Century by Graham Bell. Yeah, he's a very interesting writer, and I collect his writings. He wrote also a biography on Rimbaud and a biography on Balzac. Maybe the one I have is on Rimbaud. I think he did write one on Baudelaire, I'm not sure. But I have the one on Victor Hugo. I don't have the one by Graham Robb on Balzac, but I picked this up. I paid $2.70 for this. And then I collect books on Freud, Jung, history of psychoanalysis. I just find that interesting, the history and the foundation of psychoanalysis. And I found this book for $3, Most Dangerous Method, the story of Jung, Freud, and Sabina Spielrein by John Kerr. I got this for $3. It's apparently she was also a we call it psychoanalysis, or a psychiatrist, I don't know. But anyway, they had a relationship with her, and it's a long story, but anyway, I picked it up for my Jung and Freud collection. Then finally, I found this biography for $3.50 on Somerset Maugham, The Secret Lives of Somerset Maugham, by Selina Hastings. I collect his writings, short stories, novels, biographies, anything on Maud I collect. I paid $3.50 for this. Well, I didn't pay for it. This is all in-store credit. I thought when I cataloged this in my library thing, it said I had it in paperback, and I went to my Maud collection and it wasn't there, so I'm glad I bought it. It's in perfect condition. Doesn't even look red. It's in pristine condition. It was only $3.50. So those are the books I got at Bluestocking's. Most Dangerous Method. It's on psychoanalysis, on Freud and Jung. Strangers, Homosexual Love, 19th Century, by Graham Robb. And this book on McClure magazine, Sesame Porters, and on Jack London. Yeah, I read Jack London when I was growing up. Call of the Wild, Martin Eden, Seawolf, yeah, it just goes on and on. Jonathan Edwards, I've been reading for almost 45 years. I've told you stories about my interaction with Jonathan Edwards, but he's one of my favorite spiritual writers, a great man of God. Under his ministry, there was great revivals in America called the Great Awakening, which is very famous in American church history. Graham Greene, I started reading this and I almost decided I might read this, so I'm going to keep it near me. Graham Greene, The Burnout Case. Leslie Fiedler, Waiting for the End, Crisis in American Culture and the Portrait of the 20th Century. I've been reading this as far as my nonfiction. It's very short. It's only maybe 200 pages. And I just bought this to add to my Penguin Classic collection. Samuel Johnson and James Boswell, A Journey to the Western Islands of Scotland, a journal of Tour of the Hebrides. And yeah, I like reading this is like an intellectual biography. It's not only about this woman, this courtesan in Venice in the 16th century, but it's about that whole culture, that time period. And just, interesting. Closing of the essays on the closing of the American mind, edited by Robert L. Stone. And When It Was Grand, A Radical Republican History of the Civil War by LeeAnna Keith. Yeah, how many people know the history of the Republican Party? We hear about the Republican Party all the time now, but where go back and you can read it. Heather Cox Richardson wrote a biography, not a biography, but a history of the Republican Party. So, but this is something I like reading, like I said, American politics, about the history of American politics. So like I said this morning, I do not know what I'm going to read for devotions this morning. I'm kind of burnt out. I'm kind of sick inside, and I don't look forward to another week in this world, but I just pray for grace to keep going and keep my eyes on the prize. Come quickly, Lord Jesus. This Tuesday, I do have a session with my psychologist, Jim. Carol says, just tell him how you feel. And I said, I tell him how I feel all the time. So what can you do? Can you give me some kind of magic pill that all of a sudden I'm going to feel joyful and I'm going to feel happy inside and I'm going to feel wonderful. I doubt it. So what I do is I pray. I come before the throne of grace. I go before God in my misery, and I just cry out to the Lord and say, Lord, give me grace to get through the day. Now to get through this new week, get through this day, and try to keep my eyes on things above, not look at what's going on around me, which is just absolutely depressing. So with that cheery note, I'm just Mr. Doom and Gloom. I do thank you for subscribing. I do thank you for the comments. Do pray that you do have a good week. I do know that life is a rough ride, and we can, for me, and I think that's true for everyone, we just need the Lord. We're in a spiritual warfare. We're in very dangerous and dark times. And may the Lord come quickly. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for your prayers. And I have another stack of used books. Now this is what you saw this morning was the Bluestockings Bookshop book haul. I have another stack of books, of local thrift store used books, that I'll show in the next video. I might do that tonight when my wife's at church. This afternoon we go down the street and we have dinner with our oldest son and his family. And then my wife has to be at church early because she's in the nursery, church nursery tonight. Anyway, we'll see how I feel. So once again, thank you for watching this video, and do pray that you're all doing well. Pray that you have a good reading week, and may the Lord come quickly. Bye.